Hello, Dave. Welcome to the chat.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, cool. Hello, everybody.
You're coming in loud and clear.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, how's it going?
It's going good. Here's a sec. We'll do the thing.
Yeah, no worries.
Welcome to episode 2 of season 3 on the photo chat.
Welcome to Photography Chat with Merlin. Photography Chat with Merlin.
And we've got Dave Rollans, aka Synodar, on here with us. And also, I have to give him props for the new setup, because it was your question about better audio that led me to investing in buying better stuff for better audio.
And it sounds significantly better, so yeah, thank you.
No problem. I listen on the chat, and you get what you ask for.
My cat is already meowing at the door. She's like, "You're stuck in there." I don't get good internet in my office, which is like a detached garage off the back of the house, and so I'm in the bedroom doing this.
And the cat's like, "I see you there, but I can't be in there." So obviously...
Oh yeah, and Alana says hi.
Hi, Alana.
I'll be sure to relay that message after this.
Definitely.
So I had like a couple topics that sorry to just like dive right on into it, but I had a couple topics that I wanted to talk about, and I also laid out some of my favorite books here in order to share with people. Like if I only had a couple books to hang on to, these would be the ones.
Awesome.
I mean, aside from I have a whole collection of books from various photographers, but these have been like my bread and butter and ones I've had kind of the longest.
I'm looking forward to hearing about the books.
Yeah, so one of them is Cape Light.
I remember you talking about this one.
Yeah, Joel Meyerowitz, exceptional book. So for anybody who hasn't read that one, that's like an amazing book. Fred Herzog, Modern Color, exceptional book. Kodachrome slides, which is just, they're amazing. I'm blown away by the work in there.
Yeah, I have a copy of that one. Absolutely love it.
Another one here is a like college level textbook, The Master Guide to Photography. And it does everything from history to how to develop your film to what's going on in a C41 process, an E6 slide process, how Polaroids work, how to do wet plate. I mean, this book covers pretty much everything, like how to build a dark room under the stairs in your house or in a bathroom or closet. Just a couple more books here, and then we can move forward from my rant here about books. But this was an interesting one. It's called Read This If You Want to Take Great Photographs of People by Henry Carroll. And this was given to me as a gift, and I actually really enjoyed it. Even though some of the concepts in there maybe are somewhat basic, it had a lot of really good just food for thought. And I think going over the basics, like when I taught drum lessons for years, and I always would just drill basics and let the students kind of take it in whatever direction they wanted. I feel like if you are constantly going over the basics, even when you're first starting with cameras, like what is shutter speed and aperture and all these things, and going through so that you know like what a whole stop from like f2.8 to 4, you know what I mean, 5, 6, 8, 11, 16, and down the line. I think going over those basics is great. Last two here is The Unspoiled West. And this was edited by Jerome Prescott, but it's got all kinds of different photographers in there. A lot of glass plate work, which is amazing. And it was like $2 at Goodwill, so I got it. And the last one is Bill Brandt, Shadow and Light. It's just a great book.
Awesome.
So, yeah. And just one last one, The Andromeda Strain. which is not a photo book.
But a fantastic book. It was one of my favorites.
It's so
when I was a
good.
kid.
It's
That's
so
really
good. Yeah. So I'd like to talk to you about print. Like, why is print important to you?
To me or to you?
No, to you. Because I'm curious to hear like your side of that. Like, everybody's perspective on these things is a little bit different.
Well, why it's important to me is it's something tangible. It's like why I like Polaroids so much as well. Is with digital photography, mobile phones, all that kind of stuff. People are taking large volumes of images that kind of go nowhere. Like, I'm just as bad. Like, I had to upgrade to a 256 gig iPhone a couple of years ago because I had so many photos. And when I looked at it, it's like, 35,000 photos of like what? And I'm like, oh, but I can't delete any because like, maybe there's a good one in there. But it's like, how do you go through 35,000 photos? Like, it doesn't make sense. So I like the idea of print because it's something tangible that you can pick up and hold and share, and you feel more connected to it than you would being like, here, check out this photo on my iPhone, versus like, here, look at this photo. That's a big part of it. And then also like print in the sense of like books and whatnot is important because it allows us to share this medium with other people on a larger scale, such as this book by a fantastic photographer who we might know.
I'm actually going to be giving away 2 of these today. There was too many, and like I wish I could give one to everyone. There were so many comments. I put it up very simply just to have people comment on there, and that would enter you in to win. And I didn't anticipate. I thought there'd be like 2 people doing it or something, but there was like 100 some odd people. It was pretty crazy.
Well, I'm not surprised.
I'm sorry to anybody in the chat too. I've not been like reading the chat or anything.
That's okay. You don't have to worry about reading the chat there. I monitor that stuff there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you there in the sense that a print is a tangible thing, and there's an intimacy to the relationship of a print, specifically a magazine and a book, because these are items that you hold. These are items that don't go on the wall, or not necessarily, but typically aren't on a wall. And so you hold them when you view them. And that's the reason that I really like making small prints, because even if you framed a small like 4x5 print, you may actually hold the frame and like view the object instead of it becoming kind of this thing that's on the wall. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, like big prints, but I think the relationship with a big print isn't necessarily as intimate, or maybe it's just when you first get it and you're just like enamored by this big print. But I feel like it's something that you're less likely to touch and hold, and the intimacy of holding that print is a big thing to me. And starting out in high school darkroom photography, if you didn't make a print, you failed. You failed that project fully because the final output was a print. So to me, then moving into the digital world, I love the digital world, but I don't get the idea of shooting a photo just to make a JPEG. I love previewing I do all inkjet prints for the most part at this point, but aside from like a preview, I don't really like the final output to be digital media. Like if I really love a photo, I'm gonna print it like as soon as I can, even if it's a 4x5 print of it. I'm gonna print it as soon as I can so I can hold it, and then it's finally real. Like that print is finally this thing that exists. Even though I shoot, slide, and it exists in that capacity, but I feel delicate about negatives and stuff. You don't sit there and hold your negatives as opposed to a print, which I'm fine handling.
Unless you're a psychopath, and then you're just like, yeah, get your fingers all over it.
You're like chewing on it and stuff.
I like the way this image tastes.
You got a digital camera recently, right?
Yeah, I did.
We can go ahead and talk about that, because I don't like the idea that any photographic medium is superior to another. And so the whole film versus digital thing, I think they both have such amazing applications.
And I completely agree with you on that. It was so I went Fuji Gang, which meant that I had to eat a fuck ton of crow, because it's no secret the burning hatred I have towards Fuji for plethora of reasons. The biggest one being their hatred of pack film. But holy shit, do they make a nice digital camera. I have two of them now because originally I wanted an X Pro 2 and I couldn't find an X Pro 2 at a reasonable price. And Big Head Taco, aka Take, was like, well, you know, the XT2 is exactly the same as the X Pro 2 from like a fundamental picture making perspective, like same processor, same sensor, all that stuff, just a different body layout. So I picked up an XT2 because I found one at a really good price, and then absolutely fell in love with the Fuji platform. Their glass is fucking amazing. I really have fallen for the 56mm f1.2, which is like an 85mm equivalent lens in 35 millimeter, and it's a really long fucking lens. But the images I get from it just fucking blow my mind. What's that?
I'm sorry to cut you off there, but that's where I feel like the differences matter, is because it's not a film stock anymore. It's an imaging sensor and a processor.
Yes.
And I think all the brands render things in a way that is kind of, maybe you could say, comparable to like a film stock versus another film stock.
Absolutely. So like recently, like on Monday, I did a shoot for the first product shoot I've ever done, and it was really difficult, and I left feeling defeated and stupid. But I'm gonna go back this following Monday to reshoot a couple of things after like what I learned, because we ran out of time, and like it was a really dim restaurant and just very challenging lighting. But I borrowed a friend's Nikon D800 because I was like, I don't know if like, you know, the Fuji is good enough to be like charging someone time for it, so I need to get like a real camera, and then I could use all of my Nikon glass that I still have because I still shoot Nikon film. And I ended up not being happy with many of the shots that are coming out of the D800. And I was like, fuck it. I pulled out the XT2 and started taking shots, and immediately I was happier and the customer was happier with just what was coming out of the camera from the Fuji. And I was just like, well, shit. This is an interesting lesson to learn. So like your point there, like, you know, different digital cameras and sensors and processors and all that would be very similar to like, you know, I want to use this film stock for this project or that film stock.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that guys would shoot slide film back in the day, and there was, you know, a number of different slide films that were available, especially for product stuff. And the guy that owns the camera shop that I work at a couple days a week, he was telling me about how they would process them differently and match up the colors with how the product actually looked and stuff, because I mean that stuff mattered heavily, how it renders a color. I personally still shoot a Canon 6D from 2012 for when I'm doing product photography, and it's not the highest resolution camera. It's like 20 megapixels, but it gets the job done, and your lights matter more than anything. I mean, I add light to anything that I do that's product photography.
Well,
but yeah,
the whole megapixel thing is a weird argument too.
Well, it's all in relation to a print size, or if you needed to crop. I get that argument as well, as if you don't shoot the frame that you want, if you shoot, you know, loose and then crop, that's a thing too. But I think, yeah, the resolution of these cameras has just gotten pretty ridiculous. And the whole debate of film versus digital, they both can exist. But I think as a final output, making a print, if you made a digital photo you really like, is a great way to go. And even if you just made an 8x10 and kept an album of 8x10s or 8x12s for reference of the photo, I think that's a solid plan for your digital workflow, to have this like physical copy of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't understand the photo just existing as zeros and ones. I have a ton of negative albums with all my negatives and slides stored, and I guess you could argue that it's dangerous because it can't be in a cloud. I can't keep an extra set of negatives up in the cloud. But I just like knowing where they're at and where they're physically at, and they physically still exist. And as technology evolves, especially with the camera scanning world of things, I'm curious to see where things go with that, because I could digitize them again very fast with another camera or with another lens or whatever, different light source, a different computer program that I'm using to invert the negative. That's, some groundbreaking technology that uses liquid nitrogen injected into the computer and stuff.
I'm terrible with storing my negatives. They live in a various assortment of cardboard boxes, ranging from a Home Depot box to some other ones. But I'm a bit better with my digital storage of like all my scans and like the digital output from my cameras and stuff. Like that all gets backed up into Synology network attached storage devices. And then I like Synology because they also have a really affordable backup service in their own cloud, where you can direct connect your storage device at home into their cloud, and it auto backs up whenever you want it to, so that if like my apartment burns to the ground and I lose everything, like my data will be somewhere safe, and I can just buy another storage device and pull that back up down.
Yeah, I worry for that because I don't have a good digital storage plan really in order. Aside from for some of my stuff, I have some of it backed up, but I guess my thought is always that I have the negatives and stuff I can not back those up, excuse me, I can rescan those.
Yeah, it's just the time that you have to put into it. Oh, we got Armando.
It doesn't take that much time.
We got Armando and Lish here with us now.
What's up, guys?
I miss those guys.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the world of portrait photography has changed significantly at this point. Not to say I haven't made portraits during the pandemic, because I finished a book during the pandemic, or the Endemic. I'm not sure when we're finally going to go ahead and start calling it that.
I don't know if we're out of the pandemic quite yet. So.
Well, I don't think there is a getting out of it. I think it's an endemic now. It's just something we kind of live with. And I'm interested in the science of that the virus supposedly is getting less strong in order to allow itself longevity.
That's also a bit of a misnomer too. So
oh, and I'm not a scientist too,
like,
so
like the argument that it's milder, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's a weird argument because
that's not my point.
Like, AIDS is just mild now, so it's cool, or no, it's just a mild case of herpes. Like, it's. I don't want either of those things in any kind of capacity. So.
Well, and I'm not a scientist, and my point wasn't that it's less scary. It's probably more scary because the scientists that I've been kind of following on this are stating that it becoming less strong like that is so that it can stay around for longer.
Yeah.
Meaning endemic. Like, I'm curious to hear more conversation about it. And this is a photography chat, so I don't want to go down too deep down that rabbit hole, but I'm curious to hear the word endemic used to describe what we're going through.
I'm sure it'll come up eventually. I kind of feel like this is just like Mother Nature being pissed at us for like how we've been dicks, and it's just like, all right, well, you did this shit, so here you go.
Yeah, and for, I'm sure a lot of portrait photographers, this has been just absolutely a bummer.
I think
for lack of a better word,
photographers, but just like street photographers, like any kind of photographers, because
anything with people.
Yeah, like anything that involves people in some way, shape, or form. Like the rules of engagement have changed. Like I just before the Omicron shit started firing up, things were feeling a bit safer, and I went to an event here in Vancouver, and someone went to shake my hand, and I realized it was like the first stranger's hand that had been like outreached to me, like, fuck, I don't know, since like 2019. And I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, do I touch them? I don't know who this person is. Like, you know, is it safe to touch this stranger? It's very weird. And like Lish, Lish says here he hasn't shot anything since 2019. I haven't seen this fucking guy since 2019. That's a bummer. I miss that guy.
Yeah, and it's didn't we see we saw each other in 2020? That wasn't 2019. That was 2020. And what a trip that
well, we
went
saw
down.
each other right as the pandemic like exploded. Like, you know, that was the last time I saw you. Was like the weekend San Francisco shut down because of COVID. Like, man, that was such a weird fucking weekend.
Yeah, and I mean I think that there was a little debate going on internally of whether it was a good idea to go or not, but
yeah, well, that was the thing.
Out.
Like, you know, Brian and Mary and I were talking about that because we split a hostel, and you know, that night we were all kind of like talking about how we had feelings of like we shouldn't have like made the trip because it feels really irresponsible, but then ultimately we're like, this could be the last trip that we take in a very long time. So we just decided to say like, fuck it. Like, it was kind of wild because like when I left Canada, there was no like restrictions at all. Like there was no like, oh, when you come back, you need to isolate and you need to do these things. Like when I left Canada, everything was copacetic. And then when I came back, they're like, you need to go home immediately and stay home for 14 days and monitor yourself. And I was like, the fuck now? Like, what happened?
Well,
I've only
I mean,
been gone
yeah,
for like 4 days.
It feels like that's when the turd hit the fan. Like, if I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't have gone. But
I don't think anyone got sick from the event, though. Like,
no.
I have to give props to Brian Brooks and Daniel and Andy and all the guys that put it together. Like, even before the pandemic was a thing, they made sure there was like pretty good safety protocols in place there. Like, we weren't wearing masks or anything, but they were also very good about like, you know, sanitizing and like, you know, just being relatively safe. So like, you know, I have to give them props for like their forward thinking in pre-pandemic times.
Yeah, and what a fun day that was.
That was a fun day, like running for tacos because the governor shut California down.
Well, if there's a reason to run, it's tacos.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
absolutely, run for tacos. Another one I got down here. I wrote down a number of talking points. Is the idea that photography is a community, and it's much more apparent to a number of people when I say that. They're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," but it's a community and not a competition. And so...
just 1 second there before you jump into the community thing. Multiverse had a comment here saying they've wondered as well how the pandemic has affected their work. They used to attend many cultural events. It was part of their interest to document them, but now they've really turned inward. Yeah, that I could see that really have it. And they also made a comment here that they've seen your work, the 4x5 specifically, with your speed graphic and Aero Ektar, but they're wondering if you've ever moved up to larger formats such as 8x10. They haven't seen that in any of your videos.
Yeah, I haven't done any 8x10, and I honestly stopped at 4x5, and I'm fine with it because when you move up to 8x10, the camera's, you know, obviously bigger, but the lenses become more difficult to acquire and more expensive for the type of things that I would want. And so I've just kind of stuck with 4x5, and I've got a 75 millimeter lens, a 125, which I use the most, the 7-inch Aero Ektar, and then a 300 millimeter telephoto design lens. So it doesn't require as much bellows draw. And I actually shoot a lot of action sports with that telephoto as well, because I like the compression of it. And I just shot my first skate photo with the 75 But yeah, no, I mean, that's a long way of me saying no, I've never shot 8x10. But I do enjoy like Fujinon lenses. That's the 125 I have is my favorite lens. And I've got a 75 and a 300 as well. And I like leaf shutter stuff because it syncs flash at all the speeds, and it's just easy to work with. And yeah. I don't know. Did that answer the question?
I think that answered the question. And Yakubova Studio says, I can't watch pre-pandemic movies without thinking how idiotic characters are for not wearing masks.
Oh, yeah.
I've kind of noticed that too. And also being like, whoa, what are you why are you doing that? That's so sketchy.
I was watching something where somebody had something on their finger and another character went over and licked that person's finger. And I was just like, taken back by it. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, when people hug and stuff and you're like, do you guys not have safety protocol here?
And Embracing Hypocrisy says, with the pandemic, they felt they had to cut the community building efforts of CCC, and they've been in hibernation ever since. Yeah, I can see that. And I feel like Dan says that he's a huge fan of your Star Trail photos. What lens are you using? I'm going to Florida for a bit to take rocket photos on his Crown Graphic.
Use any lens. So I've used a 125 millimeter Fujinon lens, and I prefer to use my Aero Ektar, even though the foregrounds go out of focus. But I've used a Mamiya RB67 with a 90 millimeter 3.8. Oh, there's a spider up there. I've used an Olympus OM1, which I actually have right here, with a 50 millimeter 1.8. And I guess my advice to anybody doing it is to shoot either wide open or just stop down one stop, and that's it. Let as much light in as possible.
Nice.
Yeah, Star Trails are super fun, so thank you for that.
How long do you usually run those exposures for?
Oh, the longest I think I've done it was 119 minutes, because it was the length of A Life Aquatic. I watched that movie on a portable DVD player, and then when it was done, I was like, okay, well, I'm done. It's cold.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, Steve Z is good company if you're going to be out in the dark.
Yeah, and like I guess to go to like a general vibe of like some people are saying that they haven't shot. I remind myself of this often, and so I'll say it for other people, that photography isn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
I think that there's a rush to like make art, especially because we're in a digital age where like I can see that person put out 3 new photos today, and then next week they'll put out 3 photos again, and then they just made 6 posts. How is this person making all this art? And I want to be making that art, but it's not going away. It's just, sometimes things go a little bit on the back burner, and for myself, sometimes it's winter oriented. I don't shoot as much during the winter, but the pandemic just changed everything entirely.
Well, and I also feel that sort of like guilt to create and guilt to be productive kind of thing are just like shitty byproducts of living in a capitalist society, where it's like, it's instilled in us that we have to do these things to hold inherent value, to be like, worthy of existing in this this current time. And that's kind of bullshit. Like, if you don't feel like you want to pick up a camera and go take some photos, that doesn't make you a piece of shit, that doesn't make you lazy, that doesn't make you like, any less worthy of existing than anyone else. It just means you're going through some shit, and you just need to like go through that. Like, if you're not feeling well, then your job is to work on feeling well. Like, not being like, oh man, I don't feel good and I don't want to take shots, and that makes me like epic garbage. Like, it doesn't. It makes you human. Just try to be kinder to yourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point of being kinder to yourself, because it's an internal thing. No other person is like, you didn't put out art, you suck. Like, you know what I mean? No other person is thinking that. We're the hardest on ourselves about all that type of stuff, you know?
We are the hardest on ourselves, but like unfortunately that internal pressure comes from external experiences where it's just like,
Yeah.
we're living in this construct where it's just like we're told and we're shown that the like really worthy people are the people that go rise and grind and like, do all the shit. And cool, great for them. It's amazing that they can do that kind of stuff, but also it doesn't mean you're any less of a human being because you don't do that. Like, the only time you'd be less of a human being is if you like, willfully go and hurt people and take advantage of people just because you enjoy that. Then you would be a legitimate piece of shit.
Yeah.
So anyways, your community comment that you were gonna dip into.
Photography is a community and not a competition. So I have people will reach out and ask any number of questions, and I'm always eager to give like a full and thorough answer when I'm able to. But most of the time, I give as much of an answer as I'm able to, and I love to share everything so openly, especially when I learn new things or because it's constantly evolving. Photography is for myself. I mean. So I feel like it's important to remember that and to reach out to other people and stuff, because it is a community. It's an open community, and I share so openly because so many other people did that for myself. One of the people that got me back into shooting film because I had gotten a digital camera and got kind of amped on that was Travis Mort's Killin' Dreams on Instagram. And he's in my book.
Oh, nice.
And I've always enjoyed hanging out with him. He's a BMXer as well, so we've got that in common, and we've got cameras in common. But he convinced me to move into the medium format. I'd only ever shot 35 millimeter at that point. And so I got a medium format, and he actually is the one who ended up selling me my speed graphic. But all of that started from a direct message. Reaching out. And so, to other people, definitely like reach out, like even people who I assumed would never have been accessible have been accessible. So yeah, it's this amazing community. And I like to push that idea that photography is a community and not a competition. So when you rule that out, the competition aspect of it, it becomes just this open space, and I really love that. Not to say that there aren't people who are competitive. I'm sure that there are, but that's not for myself, and that's not been my overwhelming experience from photography. It's been super community oriented and just like lovely people. Like I've met some of the most amazing people through photography.
Yeah, and I share the same sentiment with that as well too. Like I absolutely feel that for the most part there are great photographic communities, because I wouldn't say there's like one specific community. There's a lot of little ecosystems inside of the photography world that a bunch of them bleed over. And the first one I got into was the instant film community, which those guys are amazing. And from the experiences with that, I met other people, and like you're quite legendary yourself, Dave. Like, I ran into people in Toronto who are like, yeah, I reached out to him for questions about large format stuff, and Dave's great. And I'm like, holy shit, I know Dave too. Like, that's fucking wild. Like, they're like, oh, I've never met him, but like, I messaged him on Instagram, and like, he like answered my questions about this stuff. Same with JP. There was people in Toronto I met that, JP is trading cameras with them, and like they've never met, but they're mailing cameras back and forth to each other and stuff. And, those are the people that I appreciate and that I like being engaged with. I don't really like this subset of people who are like gatekeepers of like knowledge and access and things like that. Cause like, that was one of the things that I didn't like when I was checking out Clubhouse for a while, was that there was these like gatekeeper rooms where there's like a handful of people that are like, listen to me and I will tell you all of the secrets, but only just a little tidbit, not all of it, because like I know more than you. And I was like, oh, fuck you. Like, that's not the kind of shit I want to be with. Like, I want to be able to like, chit chat with someone and share what I know, and hear what they've experienced and what they know. And I mean, in the before times, it was nice to be able to do that with like, a drink or some food and just like hang out and like, share adventures. And I hope that that comes back because that was a really beautiful part of the community that I've been missing a lot.
I'd like to figure out a way to do photography meets that are, I guess, somewhat digital, because everybody would be required to bring digital files, but it would be that we would all be projecting them. Mounted slides isn't going to be a thing like these days, but back in the day, there used to be like clubs where they would get together and they would all show their mounted slides. And it just like, it makes me giddy to think about doing that. Like if I could come over to your apartment and we're going to project all our slides over here, like that sounds so much fun.
So I won't say any names because I don't want to get in trouble for sharing this story.
Uh-oh.
But a legendary photographer used to get invited to go to like camera clubs and like, award photos. Like they would have like their year-end annual or whatever, and they would get like, someone to come in and like, look at all the photos projected as you're saying, and then like, someone would win the award for the best photo. And this guy would get invited because he was quite famous about it or whatever, and they're like, oh, we got this guy coming in, and he would always bring a friend of his along to do the judging because he hated the judging. Because he, like, one year it was just like they were taking photos of barns, and he's like, if I have to look at another fucking photo of the side of a barn, I'm gonna blow my brains out. Like so it's just like, this is my friend, he will do the judging for me, I will be over here at the punch table.
Well, that sounds competition oriented. I get where he's coming from, but that sounds competition oriented as opposed to just community getting together to like, everybody shows 10 photos that they're really excited about that they shot recently or a long time ago. Or
that would be cool. Like we used to do something like that with Gallery 44. And it was called Sip and Crit, where like a handful of people, like 6 to 10 people would get together. It used to be in person, and like, you'd bring your USB stick with your images, or you'd email the person a Dropbox, and they would have like a computer with a projector, and you just go look at your photos, and you could talk about it, and people could kind of like make their comments about it, and like not necessarily judging, but just sort of like, talking about like what they like about the image, or questions about it, kind of thing. And those were pretty fun to be part of.
I'd like to see that type of thing come back, especially, after everything we've been through. I think it could be done safely, like outdoors someplace or something in the evening time, so that it's dark enough to be able to project it up onto a screen. But it definitely sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know, maybe that's kind of neither here nor there, but that's something I'd love to see come back. And not just here, like that's a community thing. That's something that like a physical community thing, not just the, Instagram community, but in your physical community. That's something I want to start here for photographers, and people could do that elsewhere too.
Yeah.
I think it kind of, you have to put a little initiative forward sometimes to get the ball rolling,
Yakubova also has a question for you. Mr. Rollans, do you hold how-to lectures? The plant in a glass bottle has mesmerized me for the longest time, and I want to know how to make something this hypnotic out of household items.
I don't really hold like lectures or anything. The only classes or like workshop type of things I've done is through Policon. And I know the photo he's talking about, it's shot on Velvia slide film. And I had to really do a lot of calculations for bellows factor, because it ended up needing a couple more stops of light. So there's just a lot of calculations that have to, come in for something like that. And it was shot on some kind of funky background. I think it was a grayish background, maybe. I can't really recall. No, yeah, it was a gray paper backdrop, and I had a couple gels on the different lights. So it had a few different light sources and color temperatures of light sources. I don't know why, but the chat.
Uh-oh. Dave did something and made his phone pause. No, that was the wrong one. Come back, Dave. We miss you. Oh. Oh, Dave has left the building. Let's see if we can get him back. Hello. Oh, your audio is not working. You might need to. Oh. No audio still. Oh, and maybe he's just going to his Bluetooth. Come back, Dave. Sorry, guys, we're having some technical difficulties here. Okay, and he's left. Maybe he'll come back. Oh, here we go. Third time's the charm, right? Maybe? I don't know. Hey!
Am I back?
You're back. Welcome back. We missed you.
That was that was totally my bad. The chat wasn't updating though. Like the whole thing was glitchy and weird. I had to restart the app and then now it's working again.
So
I couldn't see those.
If the chat's not updating, you have to scroll up until you get to the bottom. Because if you scroll to look at any comments, then it just stays there. So you have to just scroll the chat till you get to the bottom.
It only had like a few of the initial comments though. It wouldn't go. Yeah. And it may be a result of having an old phone, but
that's fair.
And another topic I wrote down is and I know a lot of people aren't going to like this one, is minimal gear for more creativity. I pared down and got rid of a lot of cameras and focused only on shooting an Olympus OM1 and my Speed Graphic or my Toyo field camera because it's a Toyo half plate camera technically that has a 4x5 rotating back, and it takes the same lens boards as my Pacemaker Graflex camera.
Oh, cool.
And so focusing on only two mediums, I think, is helping my photography a lot and helping focus making images. I know that that's not for everybody, but that's like something that I think if you shoot 13 cameras, and I noticed this at least with myself, I shot them all at like a 13th of their possibility of what that camera could do. Because I didn't spend enough intimate time with that camera to learn the ins and outs. I would shoot it for a little while, be inspired, and then move to the next thing, as opposed to like, how can I push the limits of this camera in every which way? And I've really specifically focused on the 4x5, but I love my Olympus camera a lot.
Yeah, you just gotta pare it down and put some Barry White on and get to know your cameras really well.
I just picture sitting at a dinner table, and my camera's got a glass of wine over there, and we cheers,
Exactly, and then you have a nice, snifter of cognac at the end of the night to cap it off. JP says though, boo, let your gas take over your soul.
Well, yeah, the one camera I do want is I want the Super D that I sold to him. So when you want to sell that back to me, just let me know. I think there's a fat chance of that happening, but
yeah, it'll be over his dead cold body.
Well, I'll give him more than what he paid for it. I just want to get it back.
Or just given the way San Francisco is right now, just wait until it's in his car sometime.
Oh snap!
That was a bit mean.
I don't like the idea of that camera going into the wrong hands because
No.
it kind of looks like junk and would end up thrown in a dumpster or something.
Yeah, that's the thing that's wild. Like, it's weird what people steal sometimes. Like, when my F5 got stolen, I was like, why would they steal a film camera? But it's because it doesn't really look like a film camera. Like, it looks like a digital camera when you're looking at it from a distance. It's not until you try to use it and then you're like, what the hell is this shit?
Does that one have the screen on the back?
No,
That's the F6, right?
F6, which I still firmly believe is not a true F camera because it doesn't have a detachable prism and it doesn't have a built-in hand grip on the bottom. So it should have been the F200, not the F6. But that's my personal opinion as a Nikon fanboy.
What is JP saying? Ouchie, Merlin? Yeah. What does that mean?
About the leaving the Super D in the car.
Oh yeah. Don't leave your cameras in your car. My friend Lucy just got her car stolen in San Francisco, and she got it back 5 days later. Not as a result of the police, but as a result of putting a GPS on it.
Oh shit!
And it somehow ended up in an impound lot and had poop in it, and like it had like heroin needles and stuff. Like they had like camped out in the car and were doing drugs and stuff, but she got her car back. She was like, she came into the shop and was like, yeah, I'm going to get it detailed right now.
I hope by detailed, she was lighting it on fire and collecting insurance to buy it.
Right?
I don't know.
Like, what a miracle to get it back, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I've never heard of anybody in San Francisco having something stolen and getting it back. Nobody's told me that story until she did.
But I mean, the poop is not surprising for San Francisco because like you guys have an app that like warns you where the most poop is in the city. Like, you know, it's
You say you guys, but I don't like being lumped in that San Francisco category. I feel like I'm not San Francisco.
I love this. Someone made the comment, "Dirty Mike and the boys had a time in there." what movie was that? Was that Dirty Work? Where it's like, you know, the hobo train was ran in your car.
Oh, it's too good. It's too good.
Yeah, fair enough. You're not in the Bay Area, so.
Should I? I'm technically in the Bay Area, but I'm not San Francisco.
Okay, you're not San Francisco, but
it's almost like, you know, being like, oh yeah, I live in Los Angeles, and they're like, where do you live? You're like, well, I live out in like Riverside, California, or something, like, you know, somewhere that's more out, you know, and not actually in the city. I avoid San Francisco at all costs. I think I'm gonna, if it's all right with you, I've got 2 books here for everybody, and I've got everybody's names. There's no way the light's gonna. They're all in there.
You can see it in there. Yeah.
And so I figured I'd just pull 2 names from here and give away 2 books. I just gotta stir them up.
Fun fact: all of the sheets say "Dirty Mike" on them. So.
All right, we've got Film Diary of a Redhead, Brandy B.
Brandy! Oh my god, that's amazing because she wanted one so bad. Well, congratulations, Brandy. Also, that's another person who I miss terribly.
So many people to miss.
I know.
All right, we've got one more here. I Feel Like Dan.
Holy shit! Congratulations, Dan.
So, congratulations to the 2 of you. I'll be in contact on your direct message, or you can send me a direct message for getting shipping address and sending you your books. Thank you to everybody who entered.
You've got to put an extra special love note in those ones.
Oh yeah, and they're both getting a shirt too. So
what?
That didn't get mentioned, but but I'll direct message them, and it'll be a Dave's Film Lab shirt that I've still got some.
That's amazing! Congratulations to both of you guys.
Yeah, how awesome! Yeah, I was really excited to do that giveaway because I'd said like in November that I was going to give away a book or something like that.
You just reminded me I got some t-shirts in today and I haven't taken a look at them yet, so let's do a mail opening. Let's see. So the only problem that I have with living in Canada is that all the cool shit is in the States, and shipping really sucks. Like, they want your like firstborn child and then some for the shipping costs a lot of the time. So it's like a $20 item will have like $40 of shipping. But let's see here. These were there's like a company down there that makes like old they reproduce old punk shirts.
Okay.
And
What punk shirt did you get?
this was the one that I really wanted. No means no wrong. That's Mr. Wrong there.
I like it.
No means no, for those of you that don't know, are one of the oldest punk bands out there, Canadian punk band. They were playing well into their 60s. They're disbanded now, but they were one of my favorite punk bands when I was a kid, and they were old when I was a kid. I had to have pancakes with them once. That was really cool. And
It sounds fun.
classic Lagwagon shirt.
Nice.
Yeah, I like the ape. And oh yeah, Alternative Tentacles. So this was a record label. I think it's still around. They do like punk stuff, but a lot of No Means No's albums were released on Alternative Tentacles. So if you're a punk kid and you like t-shirts like me, buy Focal Media on online. You can check out their stuff. They got all sorts of cool shit.
For anybody out there, to segue to another topic, if you ever run into me, I typically have a printed portfolio on my person. So definitely ask
Hey, that's me.
to see it. Yeah, there's an image of you in there.
And I saw you had one of my stickers.
Yeah, I have one of your stickers in the back here.
That one was an accident.
Why was that an accident?
Because Merlin was a little high when he was photoshopping and making that order, and they were supposed to be this size.
Oh, and yeah, these are big.
Yeah,
this is a 5x7 photo album, so that's about 7 inches that way.
Yeah, and so when I went to pick them up, I was like, holy shit, these are fucking massive. And the guy's like, yeah, that's what you order. I'm like, no, I wanted them to be like this. He's like, oh, well, I mean, check your measurements next time. And I was like, fuck, I thought that was the right size. Yep.
Oh, that's great.
If you want a Merlin sticker, send me a DM and I'll mail you a sticker and a love note.
So tell me what's new with your photo studio.
Oh yeah, so I have a photo studio. It is in an old motel called the City Center Motel here in Vancouver on Main Street, and it got sold. Condo developers bought them, and long term, eventually it'll get flattened for condos, but that's a couple years away. And so there's this company, I think they're called Disco Enterprises, and what they do is they find properties that developers have purchased that are going to be destroyed at some point, but because permitting or whatever have several years before it's going to happen, and they make a proposal to them to say like, hey, like, let us rent the space and we'll rent it out to artists for studio space. And so this motel came up, and it's a really interesting premise because I've been looking at studio spaces since I moved back to Vancouver in May, and the biggest prerequisite I've wanted was running water, like my own running water in the space so that I could put together a darkroom. And to find that was going to cost like at least $1,000, if not more, a month, because I'd have to rent like a whole space. and I wasn't really prepared to do that. And then even like shared spaces, like I looked at some shared spaces around here that were like in the $400 to like $700 a month range, and I was just like, holy shit, like this is what you guys are like charging for this? Like that's kind of mean. So when I heard about this place, jumped at the opportunity to apply for it, and they're working with Vancouver Mural Fest to run this. So Vancouver Mural Fest is going to have people that will be there on site. They're going to be painting murals all over the building, as well as having events there throughout the spring and summer, which sounds really interesting. But the coolest part of it is you get a motel room, which has its own bathroom, which now I can build a dark room out of the bathroom. And the rent is very reasonable. Like, you know, it's like 600 and change Canadian a month with utilities and everything all in. But it was a motel room, like a seedy motel room. And holy fuck, was it disgusting. And mine was one of the cleaner ones, like, because I was an early person that applied, so I got to pick from like all of them. And I picked the cleanest, least moldy one that I could find. And even that was disgusting. Like, I don't think I ever want to live somewhere that has carpet after my experience of ripping the carpet out of this place. 'Cause
wood floor.
it was fucking gross, man. Like, I don't know how. I think that carpet was from the 90s. Like,
Well, also consider if it was a motel.
It's seen some shit. Like, if that carpet could talk, I would rip my ears off. Like, I don't want to hear what it's seen.
Oh, it would need years of therapy.
I would need years of therapy just from it talking to me. Like, I think I need some therapy just from removing it. But it was kind of weird because, like, it was a non-smoking room, which, like, those old motels is hilarious because it's just like, okay, so arbitrarily at some point you decided this was going to be a non-smoking hotel, but, like, you know, 40 years before that, it was a smoking room, and you can't just delete that by saying it's non-smoking now. So it definitely smelled like smoke when I moved in, and it was gross, and it was dim. Like, it was really, really, like, dark in there. But ripping out the carpet and the underlay and throwing out the curtains, those curtains were fucking gross. They were so bad. Got rid of almost all the smoke smell. So I'm hoping that, like, once the walls are fully painted and the floor is painted and the bathroom's done, that there won't be any smell left in there. But I've got the first coat of paint down yesterday. I'm gonna go and do a second coat this weekend, paint the floor. And then once the main area is all done, then I'll start working on the bathroom and modifying that to have a dark room in there. And yeah, it'll just kind of be nice to have another space as well, because I live and work from home, which I'm in right now, which is a basement studio apartment. I think it's about 600 square feet, maybe 500. And it's like, it's a fine space, but, like, living and working from home, it starts to feel kind of prison-y, where it's just like, I live in this box all the time, and I shuffle from here, and I shuffle over there, and then I shuffle here, and it kind of, like, it'll be nice to have another place to just go to and do stuff. So I'll probably start recording the chats from there once I get the internet up and running and once I get settled in. So, you guys will definitely be able to see the studio soon. If you're in Vancouver, by all means come visit. I'm gonna be excited to have people in there, because, like, one of the other things of, like, being part of this space is part of the consideration was if you wanted to contribute to the community with it. So like, in the application, it was like, would you be open to participating in open houses? Like, would you be open to doing workshops and things like that. And I was like, yeah, I'd totally be down to like, participate in the open houses and to like, have like dark room workshops and stuff like that in the space. So I'm really curious to see where the community goes from. And I've met a couple of my neighbors and they're all pretty cool. A lot of photographers. One of them is a videographer as well too. She shoots like 16 millimeter and stuff. So it was cool to like meet some of the neighbors, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really cool space. And it's got a 2-year drop dead date so far, but there's a pretty good likelihood that it'll get extended because something will probably happen with the permitting or something like that. So at least 2 years, but maybe 3 or 4.
Well, it'll be nice, and especially to kind of grow into a space a little bit. And then even if it did end, maybe you'll have a better idea of A, how much you actually use a space like that, and then B, like what you would really want,
Well, and the other thing too is the timing of the space expiring kind of works out with my own personal expiration date for being in places. I seem to have a 4-year cycle that was established by my parents as a child, and I've subconsciously followed that and never really realized it until therapy, when we're unpacking all this stuff, and it's just like I do move every 4 years. It just kind of happens. So
do you enjoy the move, or
not really, but it just like it's ingrained in there. Like I didn't necessarily need to leave Toronto. I kind of missed Toronto a lot more than I expected, but I just had this weird compelling feeling that I had to leave. And now that I'm here, it's like, why did I leave? But fringe benefit is I would have never been able to have like a studio space and explore what that adventure would have been like. Wouldn't have had an opportunity to meet some of the people that I have met here. So yeah, I feel like as much as I miss Toronto, Vancouver's okay so far, and I think this space will make it more okay, because the things that I'm missing about Toronto, I may be able to like sort of regain from this space. And the light is really nice. So
yeah, I saw you had posted a thing and the light was kind of coming through the window. It looked really nice.
Yeah, it has this beautiful afternoon light because it's kind of southwest facing. So I'm on the city view side of the building. And from like noon to like 4 or 5, in the summer it'll be even better because like the light stays a bit longer. But right now it's like if it's not a cloudy day, around like late noon, 1 o'clock to like 3, 4ish, it has this really nice beautiful light in there. And I'm on this upper floor, so I don't think I'm gonna have curtains because I'm not worried about like neighbors or anything like that. Like I might put some blackout things in just for like if I do start shooting stuff in there and I don't want to have like external light messing with other shit. But
and it can help on minimizing the amount of baffling that you'll need to be able to have it enlarger in your bathroom.
Yeah,
if you cut down on the ambient light that's in that room, then the baffle that you need in there is like minimal. But if you have just straight light coming into the room, you really need to baffle the door in order to have it be light tight.
I've got these like really thick blackout curtains from my old apartment in Toronto that are like the same height as the door. So I'm just going to use those to just like cover the door down so it's like non-existent. Hopefully we'll see how it works. Someone says miss the variations of Toronto winter gray. No, I don't. So I fucking hated all of the weather in Toronto all of the time. The winters really sucked and the summers were super muggy, and I learned new ways to hate my body that I didn't know were possible as a West Coaster. But what I do miss of Toronto is the community there. There's a very interesting creative community there, and a lot of really cool creative people to work with, and access to film resources is what I miss the most.
Does that not exist in Vancouver?
There are some film resources here, but you know, I've said it so many times before, Downtown Camera really spoiled the shit out of me. Like, the quality of their work, the price of their work, just the relationship I established with them of, like, you know, nearly 4 years of using the lab services there, is, I didn't realize how good I had it with them, because, you know, it's just, I kind of took it for granted that, like, you know, I could wander around downtown Toronto, bust a couple rolls of film out, and if I dropped it off before, like, you know, 2:00, I could have the photos that day, or the very worst, the next day. And I just kind of took that for granted. So that made having film as part of my practice super easy, because I could go out, I could take shots, and I get my pictures back a couple of days. And it made it a lot easier over digital too, because their scans are really good. I like the quality of their scans. I've never been unhappy with, like, the output that I've got from them. So as long as I didn't fuck up the image when I was taking it, whatever they were sending me was going to be a usable image almost right away. Versus, like, you know, shooting digital, one of the things I've always hated about digital is the amount of work you have to do after you've taken the image, like going through and, like, you know, sifting the good photos from the bad, and then tweaking the ones that you like to look the way you want them to. Like, yeah, I just found it was a lot quicker to, like, shoot film, because if I wanted a certain feeling, I knew what kind of film stock to shoot. I would shoot that, and I would get what I wanted without having to do anything after the fact. I've gotten
maybe someday they'll come out with SD cards, and it's a 36 exposure Velvia SD card, and you put the Velvia SD card in, and you get these amazing vivid tones, and then you're like, wait, but I want to try they've got a 24 exposure SD card, and it's Portra. I'm going to use the Portra SD card. I wonder if that'll ever be a thing.
Yeah, but the Portra SD card is going to cost $500.
Yeah, but it's 24 exposures, so...
This is probably going to hurt some people's feelings. I fucking hate 24 exposure rolls. You
don't process enough film then.
I don't like them, because I
no,
feel
but
like...
you don't process enough film then, though.
Why?
Because processing a lot of film, it's easier to, like, squeegee the roll and hang it to dry. It's just so much easier to handle.
Oh yeah, I don't process
exposure.
a lot of my own film. Like, I'll probably start doing that more once I have the darkroom, but I'm lazy. I also hate scanning with a burning passion. Probably more than I hate Fuji, I hate scanning. I've just never enjoyed it. It's not something I like.
24 exposures is better in that case, because it's less to deal with when you're developing it, and then also when you go to scan it, it's only 24 images.
That's fair. My problem with 24, though, is when I'm paying a lab to do it, most labs don't have a differentiating price between 36 or 24, so I feel like I'm getting, like, naturally ripped off with, like, only bringing 24 in, and I'm paying the same price it would cost if I did 36, so I may as well shoot 36 and get those extra 12 photos out of...
what about the 12 exposure roll?
Those just hurt my heart.
If I could, I would shoot nothing, but I often will shoot a roll where I shoot it like 8 exposures and then cut it out of the camera, pull it out, make a new leader, and process only that 8 exposure bit of film.
For, like, testing and stuff, I can see that making sense. And I've shot some, like, 12 exposure Agfa black and white that I really liked. There was some cool stuff. I mean, and yeah, what is it? I feel like Dan says Ektar SD gang. I'd be like either Ektar or Pro Image. You know, I like both of those. And then Stephanie says just stop shooting 35 millimeter. I don't think I ever could. I really like 35 millimeter. It's I don't think it's a format I could ever give up on. I like my 35 millimeter cameras the way they feel. I like how the images come out of them, and I do like that I get more images out of them than my GW690. I really love that camera. The GW690 is badass, but like it just makes my wallet cry. Like 8 photos at a time is so brutal. But they're so nice when you get the negatives back. Oh man, I can't do half frame. That's too much. It's way too much.
That's how I feel about a 24 exposure roll of 35 millimeter. Is it's too much because I'll shoot 3 photos and then I'm like, all right, I'm already ready to be done with this roll.
Huh.
I think that's what I like so much about 4x5 is I could shoot one image and just be like, okay, I'll process this one and I'm going to push it 2 stops. And, like I have no limitations in that regard. Whereas when I'm stuck to a 36 exposure roll, like I can't vary the processing times at all. And I can't process I can process a strip, but I'll typically, in the dark, open the back of the camera and just cut it where it's at. But I lose bits of, out of a 36 exposure roll, then I lose probably 8 exposures off of that roll by doing that, by cutting the bits off.
That's
because every time you have to pull out a new leader and cut a little new leader in there.
But this is also what makes photography so interesting. Is all the quirks and quarks that we develop in how we like to interact with film and use film in our creative practices. None of us do the same thing, and all of us have different things that we're like persnickety about when it comes to using film.
Yeah, and there's no like right or I'm really opinionated, and so I think it rubs some people the wrong way. And at the end of the day, I just like to voice like what I like to do. Yeah. And like none of what I'm ever saying is like, hey, this is the only way to do photography. That's never my point, and I'm never trying to go that route, I guess, of things. Is tell you how to do your art.
Well, yeah, like that's it's very personal, and people that are like very like this is the way they probably just need like more hugs or something, or just to like have someone hold them so they could just cry for the first time, like it just like let all that venom out, and just someone tell them it's not their fault, it's okay.
Yeah, but I think sometimes I come across the wrong way because I am so opinionated, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this what about, and I'm like so dead set in the way that I do certain things. Well, like one of the recent things is I won't recommend to a lot of people to buy a whole lot of ready-made chemistries anymore. Like Kodak X-Tol. I'd been all about X-Tol for a long time, and I no longer use X-Tol. I mix my own D76, and I had been doing it for a bit. But the X-Tol, I feel like the last few batches I got were like really inconsistent. And that's not what you want out of chemistry and stuff.
All of my chemistry is from like 2018.
Is it powdered?
No, it's like the Kodak like HC110 and
it's like probably still good. Stuff. Is it open?
Yeah, well, it was opened. I'm not sure if I haven't looked at it. It lives under my bathroom sink right now.
It may or may not be all right.
It's probably not all right. So I know that like when I get the darkroom, I'm gonna have to like do a big chemical reset. And I don't even remember. It's been so long since I've like printed anything. I don't even remember how to do it. Like I remember like
you'll remember. It's easy enough.
I had it all nailed down where it's just like I didn't even have to think about like the chemicals and stuff because I just like knew how much to like pour in and like the times and stuff, and now I can't remember a fucking thing.
If you buy metol, hydroquinone, sodium sulfite, borax, and potassium bromide, you will have, and a gram scale, you will have the ability to make your own homemade D76 or deck tall. And you could make it in as big or small of a batch as you want. And it lasts, I tested this out with some old hydroquinone, metol, and sodium sulfite. The only one that I couldn't get that was old was borax. Because chemistry will come into Seawood from time to time, and I get offered things from people. And so I mixed them up, and one of the things is sodium sulfite. It was the oldest packaging, and it was 1970s.
That's
And
wild, man.
it still worked. So once those chemistries are put together is when they start going bad.
What's the probability of getting in a no-fly list if you buy all of those things online? I'm just teasing.
Not high.
I remember talking with the Project Barbatype guys, though, that do like the tintypes, and they had some trouble flying with like the chemicals that they were having to buy because they were using the cyanide method for developing the tintypes. Yeah, those guys were fucking funny.
That makes sense, yeah.
And Yakubova Studio says, this is the first online film photography meetup space I've attended. I miss this feeling of a community, the inside jokes, common gripes, common knowledge base. I feel like my heart is being soothed. Well, that's very sweet.
Yeah, it's very sweet. My chat froze again. I have no chat.
I got you covered. Well, if anything comes up, I'll make sure that you hear it.
The last thing in my chat is Stephanie saying, I feel you, dude. Home is a very cozy prison sometimes.
Oh, that's a lot. What's that?
Yeah, it was a while ago. That's when it stopped updating.
Huh.
And I do agree with that home can feel that way sometimes, and that just going for a walk sometimes maybe is a good idea. I did that today in the middle of working because I was like, I can't be here anymore. I can't be here. And I went for a walk just a half mile around the block.
What phone do you have right now?
An iPhone?
Yeah, but which one?
It's like an iPhone 5.
Oh, shit, man. Okay. We're going to get you a new phone.
No, I like this phone. I'm all about using things until they die.
All right, that's fair. Well, we could find you like an iPhone SE. It's like, it looks the same as an iPhone 5, but it's like an iPhone 7 inside of the gutty works.
Is my phone glitching out other than the chat?
No, it's fine, but I just,
Okay.
just want to help a dude out,
I don't like technology. I really don't.
Yeah. I work with technology all the time, and I have like a love-hate with it. Because I find it frustrating and divisive. Like, I got my booster shot on the weekend, and I went to the booster farm, as I'll call it, because it was just like, it was at the Vancouver Convention Center, which is like this huge convention space downtown, and like it took us an hour just to get through the queue. Like, they made us walk all through the whole fucking building, because there's two different convention centers. There's the old one and the new one, and so like it was at the old one, but they made us like walk down the walkway almost all the way to the new one, and then loop us back around and then queue us and everything again. And there's probably like, I don't know, 700-800 people in like the queue with me, and then they just kept adding more on the back end of it. But the thing that was super weird to me was, through like most of the line, everyone's just like this, just scrolling away, and it was causing like interruptions to the line, because like the line would start moving, but someone's just like so deep into like Angry Birds or whatever the shit kids play today, that they didn't notice. Is
solitaire not cool anymore?
No, well, I mean, solitaire probably hasn't been cool since like Windows 95.
Oh.
My mom loves solitaire.
I like solitaire. I like solitaire a lot.
But it was just, it was weird to just see everyone in these like little bubbles. Like,
Did they talk to one another? Like
No.
as an example, I went to get a COVID test the other day, and I had to go at 6 a.m. in order to get it. And I
Did
was
you get
waiting.
the nose swizzle or the gargle or
The nose swizzle,
just the little swizzle or like the deep brain?
deep brain swizzle.
Oh,
But my point behind it was that I was the first one in line, and then the next guy was this guy was 83, and he told me all these amazing stories of he was in the Korean War, and then he worked all in technology and all kinds of stuff, and how he was going to get tested so he could go see his wife who had fallen and hurt her leg. And had to be in a rehabilitation thing in the hospital, and they wouldn't let him go unless he was tested. And but my point behind it was I could have easily just like watched Netflix on my phone or like done whatever, you know. And instead, I chose to talk to this guy, and I'm glad I did. I'm really glad that I did. I think if you feel like you want to go on your phone, try something else. You know what I mean?
well, yeah. And it's like I picked up my phone a couple times because like I'm there for an hour, so it's like I get a text or whatever. So it's like I'll look at the text, but it's like I didn't really feel super inclined to like stand there the whole time staring at my fucking phone because I'm mad at Instagram and I don't really want to need social media, and I also don't want to like contribute to my neck hump getting more humpier. That's a thing they call it tech neck now, where it's like people that look down too much get like this fucking hump on the back of their neck.
Huh.
And it used to like it affect artists a lot back in the day too, because like if you're drawing a lot all the time or you're like painting or things like that, you're crouched and like we all have notoriously bad posture, so it all contributes to it. But now in the digital age, 'cause it's more pervasive with people that use their phones all the time. So tech neck.
I try to like always have my watch on so that I have no excuse when it comes to the phone. If I'm like out someplace, I can look at my watch to check the time and don't have to get my phone out. I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious of it, but there's times at the end of the day or, just throughout the day, like if I'm developing where I'm like severely bored and I'm by myself at home. So I'll go on Instagram or I'll, go online.
Well, and, it's funny you bring up the watch thing because I've noticed that with some other photographers too, is that there's an interesting connection between, analog photographers and people who are watch heads. But I kind of like the feeling of an analog watch. It just it's kind of nice. Like I could look and see what time it is on here, but it's nice to have a watch. And since I moved
1999, man. 1999 Casio.
That's wild. Since moving back to Vancouver, one of my pals, actually the dude that made the intro track for this season, he's a huge watch head, and he got me back into watches, which has been a bit expensive. I haven't gone like super crazy with it, but I got like a small spattering of analog watches. One of them I've had for ages. Like this one was my first. This was my first fancy watch I ever bought for myself.
Nice.
It was a Nixon. It's called the Player, and it's got a real diamond in it, which makes it seem really cool. But I really like it.
I know nothing about watches.
I don't really know anything about watches either. I just like get things because they're pretty. And this one was pretty because I used to be obsessed with this like skateboard company in Vancouver called Red Dragon, and that's their like logo in the bottom corner there. And this was a partnership that they did with Nixon. Like 2006. 2005, because I'm that old. Yeah, so this was one of the first fancy watches Merlin ever bought for himself. And then this one was an interesting one. This was my 40th birthday present, which was just this December. And
Is it green? Is the
it's green, yeah. So it's got like a green face,
Ooh.
and
I like it.
it's a bronze body. It's called the Oris Big Crown Date Pointer, and this is like the first big boy watch that I've ever bought for myself. And it was just kind of like 40 was a weird one for me, because I never expected making it past 25, let alone getting to 40. And I have no idea what I'm doing right now with like my life or my time. And I still deeply struggle with like mental illness as much as I did when I was in my 20s. And yeah, so this was sort of like a happy 40th / you haven't offed yourself yet present to sort of commemorate 4 decades of whatever the fuck this is.
It's yeah, it's kind of trippy. I enjoyed that new Matrix movie.
I haven't seen it yet. How was it? It was
Oh,
good?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I know some people who didn't, but the majority of people seem to have enjoyed it. And I like I like thinking about like what is this? You know what I mean? And questioning those things. I've a great book on that topic. Have you read this one?
What is that one?
How to change your mind.
Is that possible?
Yes, with psilocybin.
Oh, I mean, I do like drugs. Bye, Lish. He was
But
taken.
I hesitate to call it that. I hesitate to lump it in the same category as like taking heroin or, you know what I mean? Like,
So that's an interesting comment. I got a doctor for the first time in it's probably been at least 15 years since I've had my own GP. And I needed a doctor because I had a psychiatrist in Toronto after the car accident who prescribed me all of these pills that help my damaged brain do brainy stuff now. And I didn't believe that they were actually making a difference. And I didn't find a doctor when I first moved here, so I ran out of that prescriptions and was just like, I don't really need them. And it turns out I do actually really need them. I didn't have them for like almost 5 months, and I was starting to really slip backwards into like having like where my brain was broken like it was after the car accident. So I have a GP now, and just as of yesterday, and so he was doing his intake with me, and one of the most hilarious questions was, do you do drugs? And it's just like, I know that we need to be honest here. And he's just like, yeah, do you do cocaine or meth? And I'm like, well, I mean, I am on Ritalin, various sorts, so I guess technically, like, I do meth. And he's like, no, not Dr. Meth. Do you do street meth? And I like that differentiation between Dr. Meth good, street meth bad.
my therapist totally does not condone microdosing.
Oh shit.
But she's also not against it. She lies kind of somewhere in the in-between where she's like, I can't tell you to do that. But I think microdosing psilocybin is a lot different than a lot of other substances in the abilities that it has to rewire your brain and to help you make conscious changes and decisions within your life that affect you positively, and not only affect you positively, but they how do I put it? They affect you positively, but they affect your outlook of things in a positive way too.
Yeah, like psilocybin has been proven so much to have like so many good qualities about it. It helps with like a plethora of things, like anxiety, depression, and also like psychedelics are fairly helpful too. Like I remember reading an interesting article about Steve Jobs, who, for as much as everyone sucks his dick, he was also a monumental piece of shit. So don't forget that, kids. Um, he was talented at milking other people's talents. But I did like this quip from an interview he did where he was trying to convince Bill Gates that he needed to do psychedelics to up his game. Because he's just like, dude, I went and I dropped a whole bunch of acid and it's made me such a better executive. And so he was trying to convince Bill Gates. He's like, you need to do some mushrooms, or you need to do some like LSD. Do some drugs, Bill. You need to do drugs. And I don't disagree with Steve Apple on that one. They can help.
I think it would help a lot of people, and I think also it would help a lot of people in the sense of if you actually do a trip, especially a heroic dose. That's my favorite, but for if you do an actual trip and lose control a little bit, I think it's good for you to be out of control and to accept it sometimes. Because I think we feel out of control in our lives sometimes, and we try to do everything we can to correct it instead of just sitting back and being like, okay, I'm here for the ride.
Well, and I think like that's a really interesting point because we have such a weird relationship as humans of needing to control, and the really kind of harsh reality, I guess, is that we aren't in control of much of anything, really. But we like clutch on to this idea of like these little things that we think we could control, and they kind of drive us insane. So it's like sometimes it's nice to just be able to let go of that and just be just live, experience something. What's been one of the more interesting trips you've ever been on?
Like a physical trip? Because living in Brazil was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, on the topics of psychedelics, what's been a more
7.5 gram mushroom trip by myself in my house.
Oh wow! What happened on that trip?
By far. I just got so frightened that I had to give up control, and I've given up control since, and it's been a smoother ride. It made me realize how much I'm powerless against, and how much I have zero control over, other than my perspective. I don't even know if I can fully control my choices sometimes. You know what I mean?
Well, we are humans, and impulse control is a hard thing at the best of times. So
yeah, but you could alter your perspective on where you sit in that regard, and not be harsh on yourself. Or there's so many different things that are perspective based. So I think it helped me a lot with that.
That's true. So this wasn't my most interesting trip, but
That wasn't my most interesting, by the way. That was just one of the most impactful. I've had a number of others that have been, kind of wild, but.
So, I have something to confess about Quarantineroids, my latest book. This started because of mushrooms. I was quarantining after San Francisco, and on day 2 of me being isolated at home, a friend of mine came to drop off some groceries because I wasn't able to go anywhere because I was isolated. And then was like, would you like to do some distanced mushrooms? He was just like, we could just do it on your porch and we can sit 6 feet apart from each other. Just, do it. So we had some tea, and as I was sitting there in my IKEA chair, like one of those IKEA loungers on my porch, the trees started looking really fucking amazing. And I'm like, I need to take a picture of this. And that was the first picture in the book. What the Polaroid didn't capture was how the tree was like kind of eating itself. It's kind of like moving. It didn't capture that. And then the second picture, this balloon was fucking with me. I shit you not. I was so mad at this balloon. So in Toronto, I lived in a back alleyway. And it was like, and the weirdest thing too, it was a back alleyway in one of the busiest streets in Toronto. And I had left my house unlocked multiple times because like I have a terrible memory, which has been even worse since the car accident. But I left my house unlocked for 7 days once, and no one went in it because it's in a fucking alleyway. Like, no one goes back there. But when we were drinking our tea and listening to music and talking about like the benefits of communism or whatever, this balloon bounced down the alleyway and stopped directly in front of my stairs. And it just was like there, and it was just bouncing. It was just sitting there bouncing at the bottom of my stairs. And I was just like, what the shit? Do you see this, man? And he's like, yeah, what is that balloon doing? And so I was like, I need to take a picture of this balloon. And so I run in to grab my Polaroid, and as soon as I came out with the camera, it starts bouncing down the laneway. I'm like, you son of a bitch, you were there for so long. Why are you running away now? So the picture of that balloon is me chasing the balloon down the alleyway trying to get a picture of it. Yeah. The weirdest one, though, was doing mushrooms with my ex-wife and her best friend. I don't know, not too long before we ended up separating. We used to live downtown Kamloops, and we had a bunch of tea, and I was just not feeling the vibe of being at home. And I just, in my mind, I was like, I need a soda from 7-Eleven. The 7-Eleven was a couple blocks away from the house. And she was like, no, you need to stay here with us. And her friend's like, no, let him go on his journey. And I was like, yep, I'm going to 7-Eleven. And I got like a block away from 7-Eleven. And sometimes like when you're in that space and you see something, you're just like, no, yeah, we're not going there. You can see it and you're just like, no. You don't even want to get close to it.
For myself, the no means yes, because you need to go confront what you're uncomfortable with.
It wasn't that I was uncomfortable. It was just like it was a bad feeling. And it was just like, something about the 7-Eleven right now is just, I don't want to go there. So I ended up wandering downtown Kamloops, and that was really fucking weird because, like, unbeknownst to me, that week, the art gallery of Kamloops was doing this really big installation on multiple buildings where they were projecting video art on the sides of buildings. So I'm like walking down the street in front of this gelato place, and I look up, and there's this like 65-foot huge Asian man's head looking down at me, smiling. When you're in that space, you're just like, what the fuck is going on right now? Why is this man smiling at me? And like there was this beautiful piano music, and I didn't believe it was really happening. So it's like I FaceTimed my ex-wife being like, do you see this, or am I imagining this? And her friend was like, what is that man doing on the building? And it was kind of trippy. And then I realized I was standing in front of a gelato place, So I bought gelato instead of soda, even though I didn't want it. And then I ended up, I felt unsafe. And so I ended up, the safest place in that moment was the police station. There was this park bench in front of the police station. So I just sat there with my melting gelato in front of the police station. And I phoned an old friend that lived in San Diego. And we talked for like an hour while my fucking gelato melted. And then I went home with my melted gelato still, put it in the freezer when I got home because I was like, I should probably eat that. And found it when we were moving out of the house. I was just like, oh yeah, fucking mushroom gelato. Nothing really profound, but I thought it was super weird that I felt the safest place on a head full of drugs was like in front of the police station.
For myself, I think the last 2 or 3 years of psilocybin that I had used was intentional.
Oh.
So going into it with the intent of changing my mind. And I think that it had profound impacts and has helped me a lot to realize a number of things about myself. I'm not stating that I'm like somehow like better off or cured or something, but it just changed my perspective a lot and my ability to care for myself.
That's an interesting approach to it because I never thought about challenging it that way and just like going into it.
I think that, yeah, it's a good way to do it, especially with microdosing, but maybe doing microdosing for a while, and then if you felt safe enough, doing a trip.
I do like, it's been a while since I've been on a good trip.
I gotta go here in a little bit, by the way. I need to eat some food. I mean, I still got a little bit, but it's 6:42, so
yeah, we've been going for a little bit here. We've lost a few people. You did the book announcement.
Not that I don't want to keep chatting and stuff, but I gotta get some food in me soon.
No, you should go eat. I miss you a lot, and
I miss you too.
It's just weird. The time we're in right now, because I was talking with Alex from Policon, and it was kind of crazy to realize that there's like some of the Pola peeps and like other film people that I haven't seen since like 2019, and it kind of made me start thinking about like all the people that we've become physically disconnected from. That we still stay in touch with. Like, we haven't seen each other since like almost a year now, but we've talked frequently in that time. And yeah, it's just weird.
It's been 2 years now, almost 2 years. Yeah.
Sorry, like I mean, it just feels like 2020 never really ended, and we're in 2020 part 3 now.
Yeah, it's 100%.
It's like a pause button was hit, and fuck, that makes me even more bummed out now. Like it's
I shouldn't have said anything.
No, it's fine. And like I don't know. I was really looking forward to possibly going to Policon Bay Area in March.
They're not doing that this year?
They're not?
Oh no, are they?
No, they are doing it, but I'm not going to go because just with Omicron and stuff, they've tightened up testing requirements when you're traveling across the border and stuff. And when I looked at how much it was going to cost me to do all the testing, and like what if I did contract it while I was down there? How much it would cost me to isolate and stuff. It wasn't economically reasonable to do it. So like, as much as I would love to be able to go and see all the people that I love and miss, You know, it just, yeah, that's money that could be like better spent on the studio or whatever. And yeah, this is weird. I'm hoping like
Well, and
stuff relaxes by the time Texas comes around, because
that's what I'm hoping too.
yeah, yeah,
I'm hoping summer kills it off.
yeah. I mean, we should all just start drinking bleach.
Or vaping it.
Oh, the new thing now is drinking your pee. If you drink your pee, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that, and I was like, well, if I drink 80 gallons of it, would I be like immune forever?
There was this like funny TikTok.
Is there an amount that I could drink that I could then fly? Is anything possible with drinking your urine?
There's only one way to find out.
Yeah, that's the point behind the end of it, is like, you know, there's no way of knowing. You'd have to drink all 80 gallons to see if you're immune.
Yeah, you know, it's drink 80 gallons of pee and start licking strangers and see what happens.
As we lose like 8 people from the
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just it's weird. I saw this funny TikTok the other day where they were making fun of like Republicans a little bit, and it was just like, if you really want to upset those libtards out there, start dying. That'll really piss them off. Like, just, you know, upset them with your life. Like, you know, choose not to do the thing that's so easy to do, that's free, and you could just do it and save your life because you want to piss off those fucking liberals. And it made me sad because I was just like, really? This is like what we've boiled down to now, is like this just fight of the sides, and people's lives are being affected and destroyed and altered forever. And
well, they successfully distorted us with the media, and they took advantage of the fact that we weren't that far away from becoming divided.
no,
There's a lot of people that held anger but bit their tongue. And then I think when Trump became president, it gave them kind of the thumbs up to be like, you know what? Fuck you.
yeah, he made hate cool and like accepted, and it's just like, you know, yeah, go out there and hate your Asian neighbor, or like condemn your gay person next door, or like whatever, because that's your right as an American, and you know, that's what freedom earns you. And unfortunately, though, that has steeped all over the place, and we have Trump people here on this side of the border, and I don't know, it's just so easy. Don't be a dick. Just be considerate of other people. Like, you know.
Yeah, just stop for 2
Like-
seconds and remember that person you're about to hate on is somebody's mom, somebody's grandma, somebody's sister, somebody's brother, or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Have empathy.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everybody wants to eat and take care of their family and have shelter and stuff. That, you know what I mean? We're not that fundamentally different, even if we have huge differences of opinion. And that's why I don't really identify as anything like Republican or Democrat or liberal or any of those things, because I feel like that, why put us all into these finite little groups and stuff? And I think that things are much more variable than that if you really like broke it down, you know, but people are just like divided. And if you're not with my people, well, then you're not my people. Fuck off. Get out of here. And I'd much rather hear why you feel the way you feel. You know what I mean? Or I think people's opinions are valid, even if it's a shitty opinion. Like, that's your opinion. You're voicing your opinion. And I don't think it's up to me to judge you, to say anything to you, to spit more hate into the world. What good does any of that do? You know what I mean?
But it gets your opinion out there. I don't know, like, I think about the infallible words of Corbin Dallas. I identify as a meat popsicle.
Yeah.
It's just
That's about right.
yeah. But yeah, like Dan
I'm
says,
I'm
it's so easy to just not be a shitty person. And it is. It's so easy to not be a shitty person, but it's also easy to be a monstrous piece of human garbage. And
Yeah, I think the scary point is when you got a bunch of people running around thinking that their side is perfect and everything, when in reality we're all just so human and stuff, and like just cut everybody a little bit of a break. I
yeah,
don't
we're all
know.
just fleshy bags of meat that have no idea what the hell we're doing, that were put here by people that had no idea what they were doing.
And everybody forgets that they're capable of evil the same way. If you think that person's so evil, and you've got this like hatred about it, there's
Yeah.
evil residing within that.
It was, yeah, it's interesting when, yeah, like that shoot that I did this week was in a hotel in downtown Vancouver that I haven't been to since like 2015. And
I
the
can still
last,
hear you, by the way.
that's no problem. The last time I was there, it was a work function. One of our like senior managers was schmoozing a partner, and I was brought in to like answer technical questions for this guy. And as soon as I sat down, before even ordering a drink or anything, shortly after I was introduced, this guy asks me, "So, what is your background?" And not in a way where he's like asking like, what are my like technical accreditations or whatever that make me valuable to this conversation. I could tell he was asking like, what was my ethnic background, and I wasn't super pleased about that moment. And like, I'm assuming you're asking what my education is. He's like, oh yes, yes, of course. What is your technical background? And I told him, like, I'm also Canadian, born and raised here, and I did hear your Taliban jokes before I sat down, and have no affiliation to terrorists or anything whatsoever, but I wouldn't mind burning your house to the ground at some point, though. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I wish we could just all be nicer to each other before shit gets even weirder.
Yeah, and let somebody have a difference of opinion. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we need to allow for that.
Yeah, differences of opinions are important. But also, like, the thing with opinions, too, like, I always remember something that an old boss told me. And he said, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and they think theirs doesn't stink. And, it's important to have an opinion, but it's also important to be open-minded, to hear what other people, like the information other people have to share, and the ideas that other people have. Because even if they contradict your own ideas, you can possibly glean something from that. Or they could glean something from you. Or like, when you're talking about you were in line for the test and you learned about that old man's past and how he was like there to see his wife, like, connecting with people, it changes things. And like, people are receptive to being heard and to sharing. And that was the thing I found really interesting driving through the Midwest was I would talk to these strangers, like literal strangers that I just met on the side of the road. And, just by being kind and spending a few minutes with them, they were sharing these like intimate stories of their lives and stuff. And it was like super fascinating to like hear these stories of strangers. And it just made me so curious because like, as much as people condemn and shit on all these other people for being different and stuff, you have no idea the kinds of lives people have lived, the things that they've experienced. And Hearing just a small subset of stories just like made me so curious of like, well, if these people had these like wild, vivid stories, what are other people's stories like? You know, what what other interesting shit has happened out there that will die with these people because no one wants to listen to them share their story or anything like.
It's
Yeah.
that whole don't judge a book by its cover and stuff, like, and I, hold my own book here and it's got a cover and stuff. But I think that there's two sides to that because I obviously chose that cover for a reason. And I think, like with clothes, like I'll choose a certain outfit for a reason because I want to look that way on that day or whatever.
Yeah.
So there is a degree of we put out something, but I think that it's important to remain open-minded because like you said, the people have such vastly different backgrounds, and just because, let's say, that person looks nice today or whatever, we can't assume anything about them at all. They could be living in their car and they got dressed up today because they got a job interview
Yeah.
or whatever, you know what I mean? There's so many variables and people's upbringings, and like you said, you moved all the time, or moved every 4 years. Was that from when you were younger?
Yeah.
Your family moved a lot.
Yeah, my mom would have issues with her work, which would force us to have to move a bunch, mostly because of racism.